Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 1698. Today, we're playing with slot cars and a whole lot more.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today, I'm actually outside the Motor City in Clinton Township with a very special returning guest here on Cars Yeah by the name of David Beattie. David, welcome back to Cars Yeah, my friend. Are you buckled up and ready for a fun ride?
Yes, I am, Mark. Thanks for having me back.
And I guess what I should be saying, do you have your controller in hand? I've got mine in hand, and we're going to have a little racing here, but I'll explain that to my listeners that may not know about you in a minute. But I'll let our listeners know that David was a guest of mine way back January 27th, 2016. He was guest number 432, one of my early guests. Today he's number 1698. So I've talked to a few people since you were on the show.
Yes, you have. I'm glad you had room for me.
I always have room for you, David, because you've got the fun toys. And before I explain what that means, I didn't ask you this last time you were on the show. This is a new question. Before I give you a proper introduction, what's one little thing that most people don't know about you?
That I am an incredible tabletop hockey fanatic and have over 100 in my private collection.
What?
Starting from 1960.
No way. I had no idea. Well, see, that's why I asked that question. And you know, this is a beautiful segue because we're going to be talking a little bit about hockey today, which most people are going to go, wait a minute, I think I know David for slot car tracks at Slot Mods, but I'll explain that in a little bit and David will go a little deeper. Let me give you a proper introduction, but oh my gosh, you know, I have to ask, where on earth does somebody keep? I mean, you're not like a guy like me that has little model cars. I can put them on a shelf. Where do you keep all these things? Do you have your own warehouse?
Well, in my studio, I have a loft, and upstairs I have them all on display, and
wow.
I just go up there to view them, and they all work, and I recondition them all, and so they're just above my office in about a 20 by 50 foot space.
Well, you know, what I love about you, David, is you figured out a way to take your passion for automobiles and for playing games, and you've created an incredible business around it. I mean, what could be a better dream to life than what David Beattie has done? Let me explain. David Beattie is the founder of Slot Mods USA. He and his team are dedicated to creating the finest handcrafted slot car raceways and dioramas in the world, from vintage to modern day circuits for any type of vehicle, from racing cars to custom tabletop hockey games. That's something new that David's offering we're going to talk about. Their bespoke and handcrafted 1/32 scale cars are fully functional wooden slot track raceways. And I tell you, these things are detailed. You can't even believe it. Their creations are enjoyed around the world in private homes, ultimate garages, museums, commercial trade shows, and showrooms. And you know what? I've had the pleasure and fun of playing with one of his tracks at LeMay, America's Automotive Museum here in Tacoma, Washington, just down the road from where I live. And it is absolutely incredible. In fact, I was at LeMay. They just reopened this past weekend. A friend of mine was in town. We took him over there, and I was explaining to him that I was going to be talking to you this week. And he was looking at this, and he goes, oh my gosh, this is insane. He goes, look at all the little people. Look at the tracks. So you're having
That's
some
excellent.
fun. Yeah, it was cool. Well, listen, let's hear from our sponsors first. They make this show possible. And when we come back, we're going to dive into David Beattie and Slot Mod. So sit tight. We'll be right back. Did you know Covercraft offers you much, much more than car covers, floor mats, seat covers, and trunk liners? When you visit covercraft.com, you'll find Cologne custom bras, LeBra front end covers, and hood protectors that protect your vehicle's front end while on a road trip. No more rock chips or hours removing nasty bug jerky from your grill and your paint. You'll find vehicle seat back organizers that keep everything in check, perfect for those kids in the back seat. Spidey gear webs that keeps cargo that's in your truck bed safely in place. Seat heaters, cargo bars, pro nets, rooftop carriers, bumper frames, bump steps, pet ramps, pet travel barriers to keep Fido in the back seat, tire covers, Carhartt backpacks, cooler bags, tote bags, tool bags, and zipper tote bags to keep everything secure. And don't forget their dash mat dashboard covers that shield the sun's damaging UV rays. Covercraft offers you an incredible list of solutions for your favorite rides. They're easy to install, easy to remove pet protection pads, are easy to wash too, and protect your floors and seats from Fido's damaging claws and messy fur and air. And here's something special from me here at Cars Yeah. If you use the code YEAH120 at checkout at covercraft.com, they'll give you 10% off on me. Covercraft.com. Go there and use the code YEAH120 at checkout for that 10% discount. Covercraft, they've got you covered. When it was time to renew my last policy for my collector car, my carrier's rates went up. They went way up. But my usage was the same, and I never had made a claim. No tickets, nothing. What's with that? American Collectors Insurance, that's who now protects my Porsche Turbo, the one I call my Orange Crush. Has your collector car insurance recently raised your rates for no good reason? Tired of paying an annual membership fee? I was too. So I shopped around, I asked friends for recommendations, and found a winner that I can trust. And boy, am I glad I did. I'm saving hundreds of dollars. I can sleep at night knowing my baby is properly insured. American Collectors Insurance have been protecting vehicles since 1976. They provide me with an agreed value insurance policy backed by a history of taking care of their clients. What could be better than that? Give them a call for a quote today at 866-ACI-YEAH. That's 866-224-9324. And protect the ones you love like I did. American Collectors Insurance. Classic car insurance designed by collectors for collectors. All right, David, we're back. And before we dive into your business and some of the new things you're doing, I would love for you to share a success quote or a mantra. This is some kind of saying that is kind of a guiding light for you in your life and your success. It's a nice way to get the inspirational slut car tires smoking here on Cars Yeah. So, David, take the wheel.
Okay, well, this may not be original, but for me, if it's to be, it's up to me. And the reasoning behind that is when, getting into the slot car business, no one was doing this. And I hit a lot of roadblocks along the way, and there was twists and turns. And, I just knew that there was no one else I could really count on, and that if this was going to work, it was all going to be up to me. So my mantra is, if it's to be, it's up to me. And I'll say that again. I truly believe if it's to be, it's up to me, and I still live by that today, each day, in the venture of the slot cars and in the tabletop hockey, and just any kind of things that I come upon during this journey. I think that would be the best way to put it.
Well, I'll tell you, I've got to think that when you started on this venture, and I know a little bit more about your background than maybe a lot of my newer listeners since you were last on the show, and maybe you can touch on that. But I would assume you kind of met with some resistance, not only from friends and family members, but even people in the business sector going, you're going to do what? So take us back in time to what you were doing before this venture, and then what led to the building of this incredible business you've created.
Sure. Well, Mark, back in 2098, I was a operations manager for a large format printing company. And when the economy took a dive, a lot of us were displaced from our positions and such. And prior to that, for 2 years, I just really enjoyed racing slot cars and took on kind of an adventure of building a track in my basement with some friends. And so I was just going full bore into the hobby, not thinking anything about it becoming an income or a job or any kind of future. But as the layoffs started happening and I was doing, these little slot car tracks in my basement for myself, I thought, there might be a market for this. So when there was no other options, let's say, because people weren't hiring operations managers at the age of 48, I talked to my wife and I said, I think there's a future in this. I think there's people out there that will enjoy the hobby like I do. So the first thing I did was offer a 4x8 track, just a single sheet for $700. And it was a complete kit. And people were like, you're crazy. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But when I was looking at, my time and the materials, I just thought it was something that was worth doing. So I went to a hobby shop and I asked the gentleman, hey, can I set up one of my tracks? And he kind of looked at me, and I was purchasing slot cars from him for a couple of years, and he gave me a space, and I think he felt sorry for me. So my daughter and I would go up there. She was 4 years old, and I'd set up this track in aisle 6, and people would come by, and some people would recognize me because they had seen me in my other life and go, what happened?
Yeah, what are you doing?
And I'm like, exactly. So I did that for about 2 months, and I sold one. And I was like, oh, boy, this is, I don't know. I had everything into it. And so a gentleman had called me and said, hey, I'm interested in a track. Can I meet you to talk about one? And I said, well, sure. I want you to meet me at my house. So when he came over, we went down to my basement, and he looked in my basement. My track was 20 feet by 20 feet.
Wow.
Fully scenic, and, just this kind of Christmas Wonderlandish kind of thing that, he was blown away. And he said, well, how much for something like that? And I said, well, I didn't even know, because I never considered doing anything to that magnitude of what I had. And I said, well, how much room are you looking for? And he goes, well, just about a third of that. And I said, well, $4,000. And then he said, sure, that sounds great. And inside, I'm leaning against my washing machine, and I'm like, holy cow, $4,000 to build a slot car track.
Yeah.
So I went out to he had a 5-car garage, and I built it on site with a friend of mine. And right then, it really started to click at me. I'm kind of slow. Anyway, I'm slow to the gas pedal, And
I doubt that very much, but I know what you mean. When something like this starts to come to fruition, you mean people might actually buy these? Oh my gosh.
Yes. So after, I was doing that, I came back to my wife and I said, geez, I really think that there is a larger market than what I was shooting for, and I think I need to, change lanes per se. And I made up some business cards, and I did a website that was more geared towards the larger tracks, and I had some business cards, and I left one at this place called AutoZone, which is on Woodward here in Detroit, and it's not the AutoZone parts store, but it's the AutoCast diecast store. And a lot of people who are big into the car scene, like Casey Crane and people like that, Crane Magazine, they'll all go there on Saturday mornings, and you'll see beautiful cars and such. Long story short, they allowed me to leave some business cards there. And Jim Farley, who's now the CEO of Ford Motor Company, had stopped in there.
Wow.
And I got a phone call, and this gentleman says, hey, can you build me Laguna Seca? And I said, well, sure. And he told me he was Jim Farley. And at the time, Jim was new to Ford. And I'm like, I don't even know who this guy is until I Googled him. And then I showed my wife, look, it's the golden boy from Lexus, who's now, I believe, he was with Lexus, and now he's with Ford. So there was another, turn on the road up, to the success of this, because Jim commissioned that from me. And in the meantime, a gentleman, Don, with Garage Style Magazine, had heard about me because Detroit Free Press had done a story about me doing a track on Jim Farley. Because I actually sat down at my breakfast table, and I wrote to Auto Week, Motor Trend, Car and Driver, Automobilia, and I said, to whom it may concern, my name is David Beattie, and I lost my job, and now I build slot car tracks. And I sent some pictures, and Auto Week sent out someone to interview me. Automobile Magazine sent someone out to interview me.
Nice.
And from that, Katie Leach with, Katie,
with Pebble Beach.
Pebble Beach.
Yeah.
And the Retro Auto said, hey, Dave, we'd love you to come out and bring a replica of Pebble Beach Raceway. Yeah. And I'm like, so I'm committing. I'm saying, yes, I'll do it. I hang up the phone. I'm like, I'm broke.
How am I going to do this? Yeah.
So and let me know if I'm getting off track here.
No, this is a great story.
I ended up going to a friend who is now renting me a small, 25 by 15-foot space in the back of his shop, and I was building Jim's track, and I said, hey, can you loan me $10,000? I just need $10,000 to get out to Pebble Beach. This thing is going to go up to auction with Goodine, and, I just need all I wanted to do is make my money back.
Yeah.
So I get the $10,000, I build the track, we get it shipped out there, but in the meantime, I call Tom Abrams with Reliable Transport, and I said, hey, I need to get a track out to Pebble Beach. And he goes, oh, you're the slot car guy, right? He goes, I read about you in Auto Week. He goes, I want a track. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, well, how much are they? And I'm like, he told me how big he had. And I said, 45,000. He goes, okay, I'll take one.
Oh my gosh!
So
wow.
I was kind of winging it, but I had to figure in my mind because this track is 30 feet long and 7 feet wide. So there was like this money now where the money wasn't the issue, but it was still, I got to sell this thing to pay back the loan. So I went up to Pebble Beach, and it was at a VIP party, the pre-Pebble Beach party, and I met Sterling Moss and a lot of other great people, Bob Bondurant and such. And so it ended up over in the Retromobile area there. Jay Leno came in. His producer approached me and said, "Hey, we'd like to do a bit with you." And Jay came over and we shot like a 1-minute Jay Leno Garage, and Jay loved it, and we became friends. And Mark, it just really started to snowball after that with contacts and the media exposure, and over 11 years, being the gift of the year in Cigar Aficionado, being featured on the Today Show, being in Neiman Marcus, Sports Illustrated, Playboy Magazine, Fortune. I mean, it goes on and on.
Yeah.
Car and Driver, Road and Track, and such. But it's still going back to it. I can look at that and go, "Oh, look how far I've come." But in those early years, it was building tracks and putting in long hours in a shop with no air conditioning and barely any heat, and just working up to now where I'm in a 6,000 square foot facility. I've got 5 full-time artists.
Wow.
And we are kept busy.
Yeah, I'm so proud of what you've done, and I really think you are a testament to, a bit, if you build it, they will come. Now, it's not that simple, because you did so much work, and you were kind of robbing from Peter to pay Paul to get the next one done. But you know what? You stuck with it, and here we are all the way down the road, and you just continue to go. And as you listeners who don't know about David, now you're getting a taste. He doesn't just build little slot car tracks. These are megaliths, whatever you call them, giant deals and they are pricey. They are expensive, but when you see one, you'll understand why. The amount of work that goes into these, the detail and the customization that you can do is absolutely phenomenal. And I want to talk a little bit here, because we could just talk about what you do all day, about something new that you're launching into your line, and that's Legends hockey tabletop games, right?
Yes, sir. And those came about, and what people may find interesting is I made a prototype tabletop hockey game. Now, what tabletop hockey games are is when back in the late 50s and 60s, they were really big. They had the rod hockey where the players were 10 and they would spin around, and very big in Canada. And when they were released in Canada, one of the manufacturers, Monroe, sold over, I think, almost 1 million games. I mean, it was insane. So before I did slot mobs, this is a hobby. I built a prototype tabletop hockey game because that's what I thought, this is what I really want to do when I grow up. And I was already in my 40s.
I don't think you've grown up, David. I don't think that's in your plan here.
No. So what happened this past year, we were coming off 3 banner years, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And I was kind of toying around with the hockey thing again, and I had my collection going. And so before it hit, about 4 months prior, I had purchased a custom game from a gentleman. I'm just going to leave it unknown source. And I got the game, and I was really excited to get it. And I started playing on it, and I just said to myself, I can do better.
Yeah.
And that's just the way I am. I respect this game. Everything is great about it. But I'm like, I can do better. And my brother Larry works for me, and him and I would play for hours on it after work. And so I took the time, and I invested, and I've created this game called Legends of Hockey that is, I would say, the Ferrari of tabletop hockey games.
Nice.
And it is all handcrafted, just with the finest materials, billet aluminum, Star-On table surface, which is like a Corian surface. Heat-treated players, spring steel rods. It's just phenomenal. And if people visit legendstabletophockey.com. They can see it on the site. Going to be featured as a gift of the year in Forbes Lifestyle, Cigar Aficionado, NetJet magazine. So there's really a lot of positive things, but the game has a lot of passion, and people say to me, why are you using such fine materials? And I'm like, because that's what I would want if I was looking for a game. And beyond the materials, just the playability. It's like a Stradivarius. And that's just my dedication that I bring over from the slot cars, that when you're playing the hockey, I just want you to get absorbed and just have a really great time on a high-quality game. And it does come at a premium price because of, my dedication and passion into what that game can bring to, joy, happiness.
What it can, I was hoping you would say what it brings to the table.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean,
you like that? Well, this is really cool. And I love the way, you've proved that no matter what you're doing, you can scale your business. And, that's pretty cool too. And I'll tell the listeners that what we're talking about here are really works of art. Even when they're sitting in a room and you're not playing them, they're the kind of thing that you walk up to and you go, wow, this is pretty cool. It's like a fine billiards table. There's cheap ones out there, but then there's really nice ones that become a piece of artwork. I've even seen ping pong tables that are made out of very fine woods, solid slab woods. The net is a piece of beautiful wood, and it becomes a piece of art.
Yes.
And a conversation piece for the room. And that's what we're talking about here with the Legends table that David's doing and the slot mods. They really are that. I always talk about a big challenge. You alluded to, or you talked a little bit about, when 2008 came, when things kind of changed. And now we're dealing with, oh my gosh, this year, 2020. Could we please just fast forward like 6 months or something and get out of this? First and foremost, how has COVID affected anybody in your family, your business? Has everybody been healthy and okay?
In my family, everybody is healthy. My daughters, their school closed and such, and but she's an artist, so she's always busy downstairs. But with the business, there was an impact. I lost about $300,000 in business due to trade show cancellations and clients wanting to, who were, we were in the process of closing, agreements, said, I really want to wait till after COVID and also with the election. And so, the brakes were starting to hit, and I had one gentleman who, the day that Michigan shut down, said, David, I'm going to go forward with an order. I don't want to do this to you. I don't want to cancel. And by him doing that, actually carried me, and I was finishing up a couple other projects, but actually allowed me to, I don't want to say necessarily stay in business, but gave me enough to just hold on to my employees and just keep moving. And that's when, with his table, where the Legends Table Hockey comes in, I built one prototype to the best of my ability to what my vision was. And in one day, I'll call it a pocket listing, I shared it with 8 of my former clients, and I sold $50,000 in tables that day.
Wow.
So
well,
said,
there you go.
Thank you, Jesus. I'm on, I'm on to another thing.
Yeah.
And I took some of that money and developed the website and further developed the game. So they're on sale, and I build them in batches of 10, and I'm already sold out of the first 10, and I have more in the queue. So it really gave me that extra push.
Yeah.
And as of today, Bring a Trailer was doing an auction.
I saw that, yes.
Are familiar, and it was a track that I built for a gentleman back in 2012, which was actually, realistically, I should say, my second year in business. Mm-hmm. And for the price that I built it for, the gentleman practically tripled his money.
Yeah,
and for what, in the track, I believe, sold for $65,000, and for $20,000 more, I would build that track for you today. Mm-hmm. So everyone kind of made out. So
yeah, this is really cool. I saw that and I smiled because I knew we'd be talking today, and I went, this is so cool because this is a testament that what you're creating is not just a happenstance fly-by-night thing. It's something that is of value. And I look at it this way. It's kind of like looking at things like restored cars. Many times people restore cars and they spend all this money or even have special builds done. And then when they resell, they sell for fraction, pennies on the dollar or parts of dollars. They just don't sell for as much. When I look ahead at somebody like Rod Emery, John Wilhoit, Rob Dickinson, who are building outlaw cars, Singer cars, and then their cars go back on the market and they sell for more than what they paid for them. Now, if you think about someone like Singer, his original cars were $200,000, $250,000. Now they're $750,000, $800,000. I mean, pushing $1 million. Things changed, and the same for you. I mean, it costs more to do things now than it did 10 years ago. That's just inflation. That's what happens. But it brought a huge smile on my face, and I went, you know what? David must be smiling when he sees this but I just love the whole story. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and where you've gone with it and what you've done has been tremendous. Let's say thank you to our sponsors real quick. We come back. I want to kind of share your passion with slot cars and cars in your life. So sit tight, keep the controller at hand. We're ready to take off here. Plus I've always thinking about you when I think about these new electric cars, because when you and I last talked, electric cars were kind of, and now it's ludicrous mode. It's just like living in David's life, right? So,
yes, sir.
So sit tight. We'll be right back. Let's step away from the conversation and talk about our charity of choice here at Cars Yeah, America's Automotive Trust. America's Automotive Trust is a group of like-minded nonprofits that are working together to preserve and promote car culture across the country. Together, they provide scholarships and grants to aspiring technicians and restoration artists. They provide youth education programs and bring communities together through auto-related events, car shows, and drives. Among these nonprofits is TechForce Foundation, a great organization dedicated to solving the technician shortage that threatens the transportation industry today. By providing career development resources and increasing awareness and enthusiasm for the tech profession, TechForce is bringing bright young students into the auto, diesel, aviation, marine, motorcycle, motorsports, and restoration worlds. To date, they've awarded more than $10 million in scholarships and grants to tech students. And in times like these, I don't have to tell you how essential those techs are, keeping our delivery and emergency vehicles running and keeping America rolling. To learn more about TechForce or to make a donation to this cause, visit www.techforce.org. You'll be glad you did. What do you do after running a race team for 27 years with over 100 professional wins, multiple wins at the 24-Hour of Daytona, and a win at Le Mans? Well, if you're Kevin Buckler, a racer and the racing group's team owner, you create Adobe Road Winery. Located in Petaluma, California, he and his team have created a winning combination with the Racing Series, 4 ultra-premium red wine blends that are in a class of their own. Like racing, these wines comprise of art, precision, engineering, science, and a whole lot of fun. You can choose from 4 blends titled Redline, Apex, Shift, and the 24. Today I'm going to tell you about Redline. It's a rich and complex blend delivering a taste of ripe blackberries, black cherry licorice, and a hint of toasty oak. An added very cool option is that this features the world's first interactive wine label. That's right. When you pour the wine, the 3-dimensional tachometer actually hits the red line. It's incredible. The Racing Series is a killer gift for the automotive enthusiast in your life, and I've got a deal for you. If you use the code CARSYEAH, all one word in all caps, when you go to checkout, you'll get $10 off any purchase of wines from the Racing Series. The wine ships promptly and arrives quickly right at your door. Use the code CARSYEAH at checkout for $10 off of your purchase today. There's always a seat at the table for excellence with the Racing Series. Go to adoberoadwines.com and use the code CARSYEAH to save $10 today. Cheers! All right, we're back, and I'd love for you to share a story that instigated, and I typically ask about cars or for cars, but you've been a slot car guy, I think, since you're a kid. So when did this all start, this passion for slot cars?
Well, it started probably I was 8, 9 years old. My brothers had slot cars, and they were always around the house, but they didn't let us play with them. I have 7 brothers, so you can imagine
wait a minute.
Well things got.
7? Now, where are you in the mix of 7 brothers?
I am the youngest, and I have a twin.
Oh, my gosh. Wow, your parents. Yes. Holy cow. They had a busy life.
Yep. And 4 sisters. So, yeah, it was a house. Yep.
Oh, my gosh. 11 kids in your house?
Yep. My dad was a hard-working man. So when we got toys,
we
played. Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, I can remember our slot cars. You know, it came to a time where they didn't even have the bodies anymore. They were just always chassis, because we would step on them and such. And,
wow.
Even we had tabletop hockey games in that we'd play them so much the players would break, and we would glue and tape on popsicle sticks for the hockey players. So everything got really used. But we used to race slot cars a lot, and, where my business is now, a mile away, was Model Products Company, which was the big model car manufacturer back in the day.
Yeah.
So people who were building, a friend of mine's mother worked there, and we'd get all the, I guess you would call the offshoots or the mist, what do you want to call them?
Kind of like the seconds and stuff?
Yeah, just imperfected. So we'd have boxes of models. So we built models and we raced slot cars. Well, as I got older, about when I was 9 or 10, my brother Leo was working with McLaren Racing out of Southfield here. unfortunately, Bruce McLaren had passed away, I believe, 3 years earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So he was with the Can-Am team. And so it was really kind of neat to, see him going out on the road with McLaren, coming home with the uniforms on, and actually stopping at home with Peter Repson's car on the back of the truck.
No way.
And,
wow.
Yeah, and so it was like, wow, what is this? But we were more interested about the pit bikes, because
Mm-hmm.
they had a few mini bikes tucked in the back of the truck. So seeing that car, and then we were always watching racing, the Indianapolis 500, and anything that we could catch. And I remember going to the local theater and seeing the movie Le Mans, and just going, "Oh my God, this is incredible!"
Yeah.
Which really kind of inspired me when I built my first track to do a Le Mans, inspired track.
Nice.
So early on, it was racing slot cars, watching the Indianapolis 500, being in the Motor City, seeing the muscle cars in the late 60s and the early 70s, and just the sounds of them. And so, as I grew up, I kind of started leaning towards more European, like Porsche was my favorite car, and then I had 3 Volkswagen Scirocco's, and so I kind of went through that phase to where now I'm driving, a Challenger with as much horsepower as I can possibly squeeze out of it. And I've already gone through 2 sets of tires.
Yep.
My wife's like, "What is wrong with you? And why does it have to be so loud?" So it's kind of like, from racing the slot cars to being around cars and going to car shows through the year. And Mark, I have seen some incredible personal car collections that I don't think anyone knows exist, but these gentlemen are very private. And so I go into these collections and I see, one gentleman owned one of each Mustang, the GTs from 1967. Whatever, Shelby Mustangs.
Yeah, sure.
And I was like, oh my God, I never imagined I'd have my head under the hood of 100 cars. But there was just a lot of great experiences from that, to going to barbecues out of Jay Leno's in his garage and being a guest and just making a lot of friends, and through all these years, I mean, a highlight of having built a track for Zach Brown, who's now running McLaren, to actually building a track for Formula One proper that traveled the world to each of their races, which at the end of the season, I believe it was 2 years ago, got signed by all of the drivers and auctioned off. So just some really personal, wow, I could never imagine this, things happening.
Yeah.
So, with working with Bobby Rahal and people like that, good people who have still championed me, and, doing the Torque Show with Tommy Kendall, and Justin Bell. I mean, and your show, I mean, there's just a lot of great things that I could have never imagined as a child, racing slot cars, putting lighter fluid on the track in our living room, and my dad going, "What are you doing?"
Oh, I know. Yeah, you got to burn the house down, kid.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an incredible journey. And, with building the tracks and touching on the point of, the value of them, many of the people who are buying my tracks, which now sell averagely for $150,000 to $250,000, it's all about the interactive, the art of it. And, one gentleman said, "Dave, he bought one of my largest installations," and he's like, I just love collecting art. And he goes, "This is incredible." And he raced the cars, and he has cars, but he goes, "Dave, it's really not about the slot car racing. That's part of it." He goes, "But I just love the way it looks." And so that's very touching. And I still, to this day, once they go out the door, I'm kind of disappointed, because it's kind of like
your children.
You send your kid off to school the first day, and you're like, oh. But I'm glad to see them go, because then we're always on to the next one, and just trying to really push myself and my guys to really deliver.
Well, you deliver, that's for sure. And, I was thinking back to our first talk. You mentioned my first new car was a 79 Scirocco. So were those Scirocco's you had, were they the first gen Scirocco or second gen?
They were the first generation.
Okay, yeah, like mine. Okay, yeah, those were fun cars. I mean, not super fast, but I was in college and I went from a Carmen Ghia to that car, so it was faster. It was more luxurious, I guess. But you just don't see those around anymore.
No, and I look. Either the rust buckets, or they just want too much. And I told my wife, when I find the right one, I've got the permission that when I find the right one, I can pull the trigger. Because our daughter, Madeline, she's 17, and she's going to be going off to college. So there's still lots of responsibility, to the business, to this family, and to my team. I just can't. It's a different world. And the Scirocco is one dear to my heart. It'll show up when it's ready.
Of course it will. Yeah, cars have a way of finding us when we really want them. What was your first very special car?
I would say, well, I had a 1968 Corvair convertible.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, in Monza. So it was really sweet, but the back end would always kick around on gravel, and so it got pretty scary. The engine was in the back, and so it was kind of heavy.
Uh-huh.
And then I had a 70 Charger that I really enjoyed. 69 Nova, but then then I got into the Scirocco's, and it was 3 Scirocco's in a row.
Wow.
So I kind of went that way, and now with the way life goes, it's I've got the Challenger and the Range Rover and the family van.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm pretty. There's still some cars out there that I would like, but to be honest, Mark, I've been in Ferraris that I could never imagine. What is it? The Ferrari F40.
Oh yeah.
Because the clients will say, "Hey, you want to go for a ride?" And so now I'm like, I don't know, the cars I really like I could never afford, but I still like the 1972 RS.
Mm-hmm.
Porsche RS. That's classic with the ducktail and the 73. And so those are kind of cars that I think, hey, maybe someday. And the Porsche 928 was, back when I was younger, seeing Tom Cruise.
Who's the U-boat captain?
Exactly. And I did find one of those last summer, and I hesitated, and I lost out on it.
Wow.
And it was the exact same car. So that's kind of, with where I'm at with cars. On a personal side,
I always say that the right car will find you, and if you didn't get the car you thought you wanted, you probably dodged a bullet. You just don't know what that bullet had in store for you. So it's the only way you can look at it when you miss cars. That's the way I kind of view it. But the right cars will come along. Just give it time. Give it time.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Well, when people ask me, do you have a car collection? I say, yeah. And they say, well, how big? I say, well, I bought 700 of them. And then I said, but they're about this big. And then their eyes get big, and then they come to the studio, and you can see them on display in the cases down the hall. So,
yeah, exactly.
But,
I've got the same collection. It's just they're all sitting on my desk or on a shelf somewhere. Well, here's a bit of an introspective question, David. If I crawled into your head here, if you were manifest as a vehicle, this isn't what you want to be. This is your attributes as a human in a vehicle. What would you be, David?
Wow. That's kind of a
ethereal question. Yeah, a deep question. You're kind of on the counselor's couch today.
What kind of vehicle would I be? First thing that pops in my head is a Range Rover Defender.
Oh, okay.
Because they're very strong. They're very protective. They're nothing stops them pretty much. They just keep going and going, and resilient. I guess
what you got to be.
That kind of. Yeah, exactly. And I've had Range Rovers, and I've loved the brand, and I've always felt safe in them. So I think if that's my spirit automobile, that would be kind of it.
Okay, I like it. Nicely answered. I think it's good. Yeah, it's a way to go. Well, we are entering what I call the last lap around the slot car track here. I'm going to fire off some quick questions, get some quick answers from you. And with a controller on a slot car track, you can go very quick and stop very quick. So here we go.
Sure.
What's one of your personal habits that you believe has contributed to your successes with your business?
My personal habits.
Yeah.
I want to say, I don't know if this would be a habit, but I have, what is the word? I have that compulsive disorder.
OCD?
Yes.
Or ADD?
I never stop.
Or DDS? Or STP? Or
I think it's one of those, but I can never stop thinking about slot cars and tracks and creating things. And my wife's like, when I get up in the morning, she'll say, just give me 5 minutes to enjoy my coffee. And then it starts just pouring out of me, hey, I was thinking about this and this turn and what we did.
Yeah.
So, did you ask what was one of my habits?
Well, yeah, I think OCD is probably, although sometimes that's a mental disorder they talk about, compulsive, but we'll call it something good here because I think a lot of us car folks, automotive enthusiasts are a bit OCD when it comes to cars and things.
Yeah, I guess my habit would be I'm always looking at things and how I can improve them.
Okay.
Or, what could have been made better about the slot car tracks of the past and the slot cars that are even the cars today, even the hockey games. And that's where people, when they come upon my games, it's like, well, how did you think of this? And why are you doing it like this? Because I always think there's a better way, not always the fastest way and not the easiest way. But if I get there, that's, getting to the furthest location isn't always a straight line. You got to go around mountains and obstacles and stuff. So I'm always willing to just keep thinking and invest, time and money to get the best out of whatever I'm doing.
Right.
And that's pushing myself, and I walk 5 miles a day, and, I do all kinds of things to make myself better so I can be on the planet longer for my family and people who want tracks.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna say what you have is Kaizen, which of course is that Japanese term which means change for the better, continuous improvement, kind of sharpening the saw. Kaizen is that concept. So I'll say that you have Kaizen. How's that sound?
I like that.
Okay, very good.
I just read the Art of War for the second time, too.
There you go.
So,
yeah, that's mentioned in there. Absolutely. Funny you mentioned that. My guest yesterday mentioned that as a book to read. So Lou Santiago, builder of classic cars, and he has a YouTube channel. Kaizen is a good thing. Now, if I could arrange for you to sit down and have a drink or a meal with anyone in the automotive industry, living or deceased, who would it be?
Anyone in the automotive industry.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people.
I know.
I would have to say Kimi Räikkönen.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What do you like about Kimi?
He's a driver.
Yeah, driver, F1 driver.
Just his personality and his focus and his resilience, and he's the oldest driver, I believe, in Formula One right now, and he just has a no BS attitude about let me just drive the car.
Yeah.
And I think if he was in, I follow F1, but I just think Kimi's a really interesting personality. I've had the opportunity of eating dinner with David Hobbs and Bobby Rahal and Al Unser and Jr.
Wow.
So I've met a lot of those people.
Yeah.
Jay's a great guy, but, when I think about, there's so many people, including you, that I'd like to sit down and have a dinner with.
Well, anytime you want. You're always welcome.
I'll let you pick up the check.
I'm happy to do that, or come over to the house. We'll make you a nice meal. How's that sound?
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, Kimi.
But there's just a lot of great people out there. But on the driver's side, like Kimi Räikkönen, and I'd have to say that's one of them. Richard Petty would be kind of cool to hear some of his stories and such. But I think. There's a lot of people. I know that Magnus Walker has a lot of fans, and him and I are friends, and I've had dinner with him and spent time at his place in L.A. So I do get to meet a lot of interesting people. And Camillo Pardo, I think you know Camillo.
Yeah. He is the designer of the first Ford GT. So there you go.
Yes.
Yep.
So I've been very fortunate. So sorry if I kind of paused when you asked who would I want to be. There's many people out there, but that's kind of.
Well, for this show, it's just pick one, and I think you picked an interesting guy, Kimi the Iceman. I always loved that one line when he was racing and the radio came on, and he said, "Leave me alone, I know what I'm doing." It's like he just gets down and focuses. I understand he's quite the party guy when he's off the track, so a little bit of contradiction there of his seriousness of his racing, but he likes to have some fun in life. Now, when it comes to automotive advice, is there something that somebody has offered you that you found very valuable?
Yes. I had a gentleman I built a track for about 2 years ago, and I installed it. And we were talking at the end, and I was thanking him, and he said, "David," he said, you're really a nice guy, and he goes, and you're a very sensitive man." And he says, "But he goes, I have to tell you, you did a fantastic job." And he said, "I would have paid you twice as much as I did for this track."
Yeah.
I said, what? Because he just said, he goes, "What you do, it's really more art." He goes, "The slots are great," but he goes, "I view it as interactive art." And this gentleman paid, a fair price for this. Mm-hmm. And he said, he goes, "Stay grounded, stay nice, and stay true to your vision. Yeah. And don't let people tell you how much you're worth. Just put it out there."
Yeah.
And,
Very nice.
Anyone who's, I would say when people come to me and they ask me, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this," I don't just say, "Oh yeah, go for it." I say, well, this is my story. And when I was starting out, I had someone tell me, "Don't do it," and stuff like that. But if there's someone who's already done it and you can learn from them, then take the advice. But, when doing something like I was doing was just kind of common sense, using common sense, failing, learning from the failures, drawing on people's knowledge, like with the Zach Brown, Zach's kind of a mentor now. And when opportunities come my way, I'll say, "Hey, Zach, I've got this opportunity with this driver to represent me," and he'll kind of chirp in my ear. And so it's good to have those kinds of people around it, and really surround yourself with good people. And it's not about, all the likes and all the compliments on Facebook, which are really great, but if you just stick to what you do, the money, if that's what you're after, will come. Mm-hmm. And if you stick to what's true to you, you'll be able to sleep good at night and feel good and own what you do and just take pride in it. And from the slot cars to the hockey games to whatever it is. And you mentioned ping pong, and that's one of the things that I love to do too. So you never know what's going to, come over the net, in the future.
Absolutely. Well, I always ask about resources. I think the thing to do today is to list your websites as resources. And I want you to mention those again. Obviously, one is slotmods.com, right?
Yes. And then there is legendstablehockey.com.
Okay, awesome. I'll make sure I put a link to those on his show notes page. You got to go and check these out. It will blow you away. Is there a book you've read that you'd like to share with our listeners? You mentioned The Art of War. It could be anything.
The Art of War?
Yeah.
The Daily Stoic.
The Daily
Meditations
Stoic.
of Marcus Aurelius.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that because I do a blog, and for all you listeners that aren't already subscribed, go to carsyeah.com and subscribe, and you'll have your name in the hat for a bunch of book giveaways I'm doing. But Epictetus, the Stoic, who wrote original book about it, and his story of being a slave 2,000 years ago and how he turned that around is really, really key. So I find it interesting that you mentioned that. But of course, Marcus Aurelius and Stoicism and the Daily Stoic, it all kind of ties together.
It's actually kind of my Bible. I mean, I read from it every day, and it's really, like during COVID and stuff, it just helps keep the perspective on what I'm doing, and just the meditations that are in there are very uplifting.
Yes.
And so I'm all about it, and it's good stuff. And there's, and there's other books that I've read, like How to Win Friends and Influence People early on, and just kind of tune up to. Sometimes you can really get caught in your own head, and sometimes that's not the best place to be, unless you're being creative, So I would say that The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday is a great book to read.
There you go. Awesome. All right, we're up to the checkered flag, and this last question is always a bit of a doozy. I'm going to buy you a very cool collector car today. You mentioned some cars you'd like to have, maybe even it's the old perfect first-gen Scirocco. What am I going to buy David Beattie today?
1980 Volkswagen Scirocco.
That's it, huh? Yeah. Okay. Well, I can do that.
That's what comes to mind.
Yeah, well, you're a cheap date, so that's not so bad because those aren't going to be.
Or a Peter Brock Datsun 510.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Maybe Dotzilla. Did you ever see that build that he did?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, kind of crazy, that green one that he built. Yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah, great stuff.
You know what, I'm going to buy you a Scirocco because, I had a 79, so that'll bring back some good memories. What color would you like yours to be?
Red. I had a Mars red one.
You did? Okay, mine was metallic green. So I think it's one of the only green cars I've owned. The only one was my race car when I was vintage racing. I had a Lotus 18 that was traditional British racing green with a yellow nose. But Mars red. That was cool. Okay.
Yeah, it was originally like a burgundy metallic, and I took it to a Mars red, and 2 weeks after that, someone crashed in the back.
Ouch. Oh, that's no fun.
But I had a metallic blue one, I had a white one, and I had the burgundy, and I just loved them.
All right. Well, I'll get to work. I'll see what I can find you. David, you've taken me on another great ride today. I knew this would be fun. I'm so glad that we got back together. I want to thank Tom Gibson Communications, for reconnecting me with David. Tom's been sending me some great guests in the last couple of weeks. Thank you, Tom. I mean, just some wonderful people reconnecting me with great people like you, David. Before I let you go, though, could you offer us one little parting piece of wisdom or guidance, since you read things like from Marcus Aurelius on Stoicism, before you drive off into the sunset in that 1980 VW Scirocco?
Oh, a bit of wisdom.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, I guess a bit of advice I would give to somebody who's starting out or wanting to go down the road that I took is truly believe in yourself and your capabilities and try to gather as much knowledge you can about business. If you're an artist, you got to know the business part of it and the numbers and what things are going to cost. Because in reflecting back now on how I got to where I am and the cost associated, I could have easily took a side road and said, I'm not going to do this. But I stuck to it. I self-educated myself about finances, and I surrounded myself with some really good people on the business side and as the artistic side. And I think whatever you're doing, as long as you're surrounding yourself with the right people, and always, always follow your instinct. That's why we have it. It's there. We're born with it. And when you start going against it, you're going to find yourself in some bad places, and you're going to be running on bad fuel and low spark. No energy.
You're going to fly right off the track, just like those slot cars used to do, right into the wall. Hear my mom yelling from the kitchen, stop crashing your cars. You're wrecking the walls. So,
yes.
Yeah, there you go.
But what What I want to add, though, too, is I want to thank you for having me on the show.
You're
that
welcome.
way people can be exposed and hear the story about slot cars, and because so many people still, I didn't know they existed. And so you interviewing me about slot cars and about entrepreneurialism and such, that, dreams do come true. And also the love of cars.
Yeah, absolutely. David is an example. I'll make sure I put links to his website and both websites, slotmods.com, legendstablehockey.com. You can check them out. Again, you're going to be blown away when you see what we've been talking about. If you've not already seen what David does, absolutely incredible. David, hey, thanks for returning the Cars Yeah and for spending a little bit of time with me here. Next time we get together, I'll cook you a meal. We'll play some slot cars, some table hockey, have some fun. Until you and I talk again, my friend, I'll see you down the road.
Thanks, Mark. Happy racing.
You too, my friend. If you're listening to Cars Yeah, you've probably spent some time working on your favorite ride. But how confident are you working on your finances? You may be able to rebuild a fuel injection system, but can you decipher the details of a mutual fund? If you're like me, investments, insurance, annuities, budgeting, and other financial concepts may seem a bit daunting, but what if I told you there's a book that describes these subjects and more in an easy-to-read and a very humorous way? My friend Chris Kimball, CFP, a longtime sponsor and past guest here on Cars Yeah, has written that book, and it's titled The Saga of Ike and Penny, a couple's humorous journey through the confusing world of finance. It's a fun look at things you need to know, everything from investing to effective ways to get rid of credit card debt, and it's probably the only book on finance with a VMAX on the front cover and a classic Mini Cooper on the back. The book's available at Amazon for just $10, and this book will dramatically improve the direction of your financial future. I gave copies to each of my children. All securities are through Money Concepts Capital Corp. Christopher Kimball Financial Services is not affiliated with Money Concepts Capital Corp. Get your copy, The Saga of Ike and Penny, today.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.